All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay. If I had to guess, I bet everybody here might want to change a little something about themselves. You know, maybe you want to be a little smarter, taller, more attractive. I don't know, maybe you want to be short, dumb, and stupid, for all I know, really. But what I'm trying to tell you is that you can change your genes. And I see some of you smiling out there, but I wouldn't go jamming my face in a microwave just yet, because I just lied about that. You can't really change them. Your genes are steady, but actually you can change the expression of your genes and the way they come about in your phenotype, which is your observable characteristics. And what I'm talking about here is a field called epigenetics. In my major, criminology and psychology, I learned pretty extensively about this stuff. And what I'm going to tell you about is a study that's pretty important to the field, an experiment that teaches us a lot about it, and some practical applications that we're actually using today. So if you're actually interested in living longer, being healthier, and being your optimum person at some point, you probably want to listen up to what I'm talking about here. Anyway, first of all, the study I'm going to tell you about is by a guy named Dr. Lars Bergen. He's a Swedish guy, and there's a small town in Sweden called Norrbotten. And what he observed about this town, it's a very isolated town, and there'd be times of really harsh winters and all the crops would be wiped out and everything, and then there'd be years where people ate great. There's surplus of food everywhere. And so back in the 1800s when this happened, there'd be years of feast and then years of famine. And this went on for about 30 years to all the people of the town. And of course this was terrible for the health of all these people. But actually, when he looked at the grandchildren and the children, he noticed that they passed on these tags that really determine how your genes are actually portrayed. And when he looked at the lifespans of the grandchildren even, he noticed that they were dying 32 years before their peers that were not affected by the situation. So it's a pretty dramatic effect that he found, actually. And that's in Time magazine. Time magazine also said that this was the discovery of last decade. So it's a pretty big deal. Let's see. Also, this doesn't just apply to food. It happens for smokers and stuff like that. You can pass this stuff on to your children. And even if you smoke but don't actually blow the smoke in the kid's face, they still get these tags that change genetic transcription in themselves. I call this third-hand smoke. Just made that up yesterday when I was reading all this crap. Anyway, next I'm going to tell you about some experimental data that we have. These guys named Jerdal and Waterland actually got these mice that had some genetic problems with them. And they were like these big, fat, yellow mice that were also diabetic. And what they did was they inbred brother to sister for like 12 straight generations. And when you do that, you get genetic clones. So every one was completely genetically identical. So then they took a bunch of female mice and they impregnated them. They made an experimental group and a control group. The control group they obviously didn't do anything to. But the experimental group got treatment that was designed to block these genes from being expressed. So what they actually found was in the experimental group, they got little brown mice that were normal weight and weren't even diabetic at all. So that's got major implications for curing all kinds of genetic disorders like Alzheimer's and cancers and all that kind of stuff. We're not quite at that point right now, but there are some things, which takes me to my next point finally I'm going to talk about. There are some things that we are doing right now as real-world application. And one of them is this guy named David Olds. He made a nurse-family partnership program, which, let's see, what that's about really is he sends out nurses into disadvantaged areas, and they don't really help expecting mothers raise the kids, but what they do is they teach them how to have better nutrition. They give them resources for stuff like that, and they teach them toxins and stuff to stay away. And it turned out, compared to control groups, that all these kids were more intelligent. They were also less delinquent as older kids and pretty much just better people in general. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up. In summarization, let's see. It might be one of the more influential sciences in the future because it can cure all these genetic problems. It's also kind of irresponsible to ignore some of these things, especially since we learned from some of these studies that you can pass this on to future generations, and the things you do now actually apply later on. But you know what? We might cure these things too. So I'm just going to say, go ahead, smoke a carton of cigarettes if you want, eat some paint chips, do whatever you want. It's America, right? But just know I warned you if anything.